talked a couple weeks earlier about estate plans. Estate plans are really essential for people who have stuff. I don't know if you understand the history of trusts. I like history, always have. I became a lawyer because I loved history. Trusts started in the Middle Ages when you had crusaders who were leaving for the Crusades. Actually, French crusaders. Interesting. But anyway, they had all these people who were knights and lords and so forth. They were going to run off to the Middle East and fight in these wars, right? And the problem was there was a high chance some of them wouldn't come back through various means, fall in battle, disease, just get lost, who knows. Yeah. But what they did is they wanted to devise some sort of system that would allow all of their stuff to be taken care of in their absence, or ultimately if they never came back. So what they did is they found a person, almost always in those days a guy, right, they could trust, and said, you're in charge of all of my stuff, and basically at that time also all of the animals and people and everything else that I control. So take care of them. See you later. Or not. And at some point, if the or not occurred, things transferred basically through this rule book that was set up through this person that could be trusted, right, to make sure all of these things carried on. Because otherwise there'd be a complete collapse of the entire country, because you have to imagine in these times, right, everybody said, okay, let's run off to the Middle East, and everybody goes, okay, well, who's going to take care of stuff while you're gone? Well, that's your deal. Relax, it's going to all be good. No, it wasn't good, because there was absolute mayhem when, right, people weren't taking care of all of these things. Everything fell apart. So that's really the whole history behind trusts. And when you think about it, that's pretty much what we need in the modern world, but in a different context, because we always have to deal with, one, what's going to happen as you get older. We have this huge blessing that people are living a really, really long time. Yeah, the real curse is that people keep living even though their brains aren't working anymore. And at some point you wake up and you look at grandma and say, Grandma, what day is it? And they go, is it D-Day? It's like, no, it's not D-Day. Okay, we need to help grandma. The question is, what do you do to help grandma when you don't have anything in place? And that's usually when the mayhem begins. Everybody who's ever had siblings know that you have wonderful siblings that you would trust to death, and you have siblings that basically, as soon as the ties that bind are off, they run amok. Kathy knows this, and probably some insurance people know this, is that sometimes people just lose their minds when somebody either is in charge for a long time and then they're not, either because they have Alzheimer's or dementia or they die. I've actually seen fist fights in the front yards while someone's laying dead, right, in the house. It's terrible, right? And it's really avoidable, and that's why we use the estate plan mechanism. And there are a couple things. We talked briefly about pour-over wills. Pour-over wills are basically part of the trust system. Pour-over wills basically say, we're going to just make it clear that all stuff not in the trust is dumped into the trust, right? Just make it easier. And why do you want to do that? Because you want to avoid probate in the state of California. If you look on my little handout, there's a reference to the ninth circle. Anybody understand what I mean by the ninth circle? Dante's Inferno, yeah, the ninth circle of hell, right? Because if you don't have this thing rigged up right in California, it really is the ninth circle of hell. You're talking as much as a third to even as, in some cases, a half, right, of all the assets of the deceased person going into things like costs and fees and, attorney's fees. I won't say that we're not guilty in this whole enterprise. So if you want to avoid all of that nonsense for you or your loved one, you definitely want to set this thing up. The other thing is a financial power of attorney. You want to have a financial power of attorney in case grandma wakes up and says, yes, it's D-Day, and you realize that grandma really can't take care of anything that grandma used to take care of. And you need to be able to go to the bank, you need to be able to go to utilities and all these other things that have contractual relationships with this person and say, I have a power of attorney she's no longer able to do stuff that she needs to do, so I'm stepping in and I'm doing it. And that helps you do it. And it helps you do it quickly, seamlessly, without much fuss. It's a very valuable tool. Why? Because otherwise mortgages don't get paid, utility bills don't get paid, phone bills don't get paid, and then all of a sudden all the lights go off, right? All these things happen. Yeah, and believe me, it has a ripple effect. It's just really, it becomes a disaster. So you need to get that in place. And then finally, we have to talk about healthcare power of attorneys, right? California, even if you don't do anything else, you can go online, right, and get a California healthcare power of attorney. It's a form. I actually use a modified version of it because it's so straightforward. And you basically go through and check the boxes and then sign it and get it notarized and provide it to your healthcare providers. And it really does help make decisions for you, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're unconscious and you don't have somebody around who can make that decision for you. Hospitals frequently try to put something under your nose or under some loved one's nose at an inauspicious time, like when they can't think straight, and try to get you to make decisions. It's usually the wrong one. I can just tell you that. It's usually the wrong one. I've had so many people basically sign off and they say, I want you to do everything possible to prolong my life. And of course, doctors take that seriously. And believe me, when you see what they can do to prolong your life, it's amazing. It's also horrifying. So those are the things you need to sit down with somebody and talk about, right? And that's really what I'm here to try to present to you as to how I practice. My favorite thing to do is to sit down with somebody, have a cup of coffee or some pastry or something, and talk about these things in a rational, friendly manner. Talk about all the options, talk about all the issues, right? I dress like this in the office. I don't like to wear a suit. Most people don't appreciate it when I wear a suit. They just get uncomfortable. They go, God, should I wear a suit? Am I formal enough? No, it's not about you at all. It's about me, right? How do I make you feel? I want to make you feel comfortable. Why? Because you're going to talk about some really, really tough stuff at some point. Things like, well, do I want them to pull the plug? Well, what happens when I die? Do I want to be cremated? Do I want to be buried? Do I want to be shot out of a rocket like Mark Holmes? I don't know. Interesting.
You can do that, huh?
You can do that. And I can tell you in detail because it's in my trust. I'm going to be shot out of a frickin' rocket. It's going to be great.
Awesome.
So, you see, those are things you really don't think about. But when you sit down and think about it, you go, wow, that's really cool. And I've had more than a couple of clients say, I got to really look into that. That sounds so awesome. But there are other things, like, for instance, if you have children, loved ones of various sorts, like cousins and so forth, you can sit down and make provision for them. And here's the flip side. Or not. That's the really cool thing. I have people walk into my office and say, I'm really worried about so-and-so, because if I pass, they're just going to raise hell. They're going to intimidate and try to do all this stuff. And I just go, I think we can fix that. And they go, how? And then I tell them. And they walk out and go, that is such a load off. Because that's exactly what the trust and estate plan mechanism is for, to avoid that. Those people that you think are really going to do bad things once you're gone, we can deal with that. And one of the people sometimes appointed to deal with that is a guy like me. I'm friendly. I'm a cuddly kind of guy most of the time. Until I'm your lawyer. Then I'm not so cuddly. So that could be dealt with. Other fun things that we can deal with is what you really, really want to do through all of your assets and abilities and so forth. And, I've had conversations with clients and we get down to the final. I say, so what is really important to you? What do you want to really make sure is taken care of? And I've had people tell me, say, you know what? I'm ashamed to say this, but it's really about our dog. We're really worried about our dog. And I go, really? Well, yeah, our kids are fine. They're going to be fine. but no, they've really said, if we were in a sinking boat, we'd save the dog. All right, we're going to save the dog. And so they've actually set up They've actually set up a trust for the taking care of the dog, including housing and, you know, people that take care of him, feed him and groom him and all this sort of stuff. And you know what? They feel very good afterwards because they're really worried about their dogs. Some people love their dogs and their cats and other animals, so sometimes more than they love their kids. It's an odd situation, but there it is. And you know what? That's really what the whole process is all about, is getting you to where you want to go and where you want to be, right? And here's the fun part. Once you get it all set up, about every 2, 3, even 5 years, you can come in and say, you know what? I want to make some changes. And you can do that. And you can do that for the rest of your life. And that's a really cool thing too, because everybody knows, you know, the difference between your life at age 50 and your life at age 80 may be dramatic, right? And the relationships you have at age 50 and the relationships you have at age 80, they can be dramatically different. And so you can change all of your documents, if you want, at some point, to adjust for that. You know, I've had people come in when they are in their 80s and they're saying, look, we've learned a lot in the last 20 years. Okay, so tell me what you learned. Well, we learned that one of our kids is just absolutely useless at taking care of anything. Actually, should not even have a debit card. And I go, wow. So we have to set up what they call a spendthrift trust to take care of them. And this will astonish you. These people are sometimes 60, 62 years old, and they still cannot take care of themselves. But God loved these people. They take care of their kids, even though they're in their 80s, and they realize that once they pass, yeah, these particular people need help, and they're going to make sure that they get that help, no matter what. And that's really sweet, I think. But you see, if they had left their trust the way it was when they were age 60, then that wouldn't have happened. And if they would have passed, all this money would have gone to this kid, and this kid would have blown it probably within a month. This is a person that goes to basically Las Vegas and blows $10,000, $15,000 at a whack. So you see, these are the things you can accomplish by sitting down and having a chat with me. So why do you want to have a chat with me? Well, let's talk about very important stuff. Been doing this a long time. Most people don't realize, I think Ron alluded to it, most of what I do is not fun. Most of my practice is pretty nasty stuff. So when I get to do something like this and other transactional stuff, I think it's fun. I think it's creative. I think it's uplifting. It really makes me feel fulfilled when I can help people, right? And it's a real respite from what I do most of the time. The second thing is that it's not a large part of my practice, right? Most of the money I make is through litigation, which I don't like, but that's how you make money. And this is something that I like to develop relationships with, and usually long-term relationships. So I always charge for these types of services and other services a flat fee. So you know exactly what it's going to cost you, right? And even if it goes, you know, a little long and how much we have to work on it, it doesn't matter because it's worth it to me to get that relationship. And then finally, I'm a person who likes to save everything. I have, you know, top-of-the-line technology where we put everything on a server that's put on another server and another server. The best example I can give you is that a guy called me, he did a trust about 15 years ago, and he goes, do you still have that? And I emailed it to him within 30 seconds. Why? Because it's all stored and we save everything. So that's a good reason to come and chat with me and figure out whether or not I could be of some assistance with your estate plan. And if so, I'd be extremely honored, and I think we'd have a good time. We have a lot of fun. Thank you so much.